it was Garibaldi, and in South America was Simón Bolívar, Mexico, Benito Juárez, and in Hungary, Kossuth. All of those men, Freemasons, all of them. Is that just chance? Is that just the luck of the dice? I don't think so. The problems that we're seeing now, especially the so-called anti-Americanism, and much of it being fomented, but it's for good reason. America is no longer a place. In my opinion, America has become an idea, and the idea came from the craft of Freemasonry. And that idea is what's moving across the face of the globe, and if you're in power, those ideas are dangerous. And I can understand the Middle Eastern people. The ideas that are being presented in this country, saying, look what happens when you let the common people move and control the government. They don't want any part of that, because then they have to give up the levers of power. And this is going to take a struggle. There is no question about it. But it's starting to move worldwide, and something that happened here. When I look at the key question for me, is this all chance, or was it written on the trestle board? Did the Supreme Architect lay out the plans for the building, first of all, of this country to become the tool to bring freedom, tolerance, and love and peaceful connection to the rest of the world? The common thread of the 13 colonies, and you need to understand that they had very little in common. And especially when you've got these southern colonies with a slave base for their power, and the northern colonies not only without a slave base but anti-slavery as they grew, particularly under Puritan, Congregational, and the Presbyterian drive up north. But the one thing they had in common was the craft. Now, who carried out the war? George Washington, obviously, member of the fraternity. I just want you to know that Washington needed that thread, because he knew that if he had his top generals and they were all fellow brother Masons, he could trust them, and he knew he had a tie to them, a cable tow to them, that was different from just commanding officer to a next level of rank. And the Constitutional Convention, after that successful war, when the Constitutional Convention was carried out, it almost failed. We almost didn't get that Constitution. And what saved it, and there's a dozen accounts that any of you can check that out, an 81-year-old Grand Master of the Lodge of Pennsylvania stood up and talked to them, and I'm talking about the great Benjamin Franklin. And Franklin saved that Constitutional Convention, and they finally all agreed that they would sign and worry about what we call the Bill of Rights at the first act of the next Congress, and they pledged those that were going to become congressmen that would be the Act 1 of Congressman 1, and it was, and they passed those first 10 amendments. I look at World War II, and for those of you as our guests tonight, who are the names you associate with bringing about the successful conclusion of that war? You've got to start with Churchill and Roosevelt, no question about those two, and followed by Harry Truman, and certainly General Marshall and the Truman or Marshall Plan that followed after the war that preserved that peace. And you've got to look at Douglas MacArthur out in the Pacific and what he did in laying a constitution and creating a democracy in Japan from a nation that had been a warrior nation. Now, am I to tell you that most of those men are Masons? No. All of those men were Freemasons. I'm going to start going down the line. Admiral King and Admiral Leahy. I can go down to Bull Halsey. But there's no sense in going down farther ranks in either theater. The 5 key men, all of them members of this craft. Is that just chance? Or did they carry with them those notions that they learned from the time that they entered as entered apprentice? Because America has a purpose and a function and a design. And I now believe it was created by the Supreme Architect with a very specific purpose. And to put it in industrial terms, We are the research and development laboratory for this world. Bring together all of the different kinds of people on the globe, different races, different religions, different ethnic groups, different beliefs, different political beliefs. Bring everybody together and find out if they can live together peacefully and self-governed. Because if it works here, it will work for the entire globe. And that's why America has become an idea and no longer is simply a place. But I think this current century, the one that I'm going to miss, is very promising because there's a possibility of a quantum leap to build the world's royal arch that'll cover all of the peoples, all of the religions, all of the races of this world, to understand that we are all brothers and sisters and that we are under one fatherhood. It is possible a world of no war, of religious tolerance, of racial tolerance, with food, shelter, and security for everybody in the world, and a brotherhood of mankind. So for those of you now who are my brothers in this hall, I tell you, this is no time for any of you, regardless of your age, to say it is high 12 and there is no work before us. He has put a good deal of work on that trestle board, and let us get to our labors and finish building the temple. There's an incredible opportunity